Son Excellence, honorable participants on this highly important, crucial conference, Sister Dhjetor, may I quote the Speaker of the House, Chairperson, President of the Parliament, during our coffee time before the conference. May we pay honor to the charismatic leadership of Sister Dhjetor. These are the words of the President of the Chamber. So I just quote honorably and modestly the Chair. Good friends for many years. Shall I give my lecture from the perspective of a bureaucrat? I was Chef de Cabinet of the Minister, head of the Cabinet of the Minister, and governed the Commission for Universities quite a long time in Belgium. Or should I talk as an academic in international gremia? Let me hold this lecture as a deep friend of Albania. Albania is close to our heart. I was here from the mid-90s. Yeah, and still loyal to this country for many reasons. And one of the reasons is detected by a novelist, a very talented Austrian author, who just a couple of months ago published in German language a book on the Erweiterung, the enlargement. And his basic statement, Minister, you will love this statement. If you have to search for the identity of Europe, go to Albania. But in the Balkans, we will lay the future of Europe. Fascinating. We have to be concerned. And let me talk as a friend of Albania. That means also as a critical friend of the country. There is good news, definitely. The best news is that yes, education remains one of the most trusted institutions in society. I'm a fan of Eurobarometer. Please take notes. Eurobarometer. Go this evening. Eurobarometer is detecting public opinions, education, and there are also national barometers. Several national surveys focused on youth who is confronted and frustrated by many crises. I call it a polycrisis. We are living a polycrisis from many perspectives. What are the institutions most trusted by youngsters? Family and schools. Yes, there are reasons for hope to be hopefully inspired on engagement in education. And the last Eurobarometer on Western Balkans, I quote, better education will be the most vital condition for the creation of jobs and civic participation. Education, Western Balkans. There are many reasons to be positive. Also, and the Minister refers to the accession procedure, and I'm following the accession procedures of Albania and Western Balkan states already for quite a long time. Last document, November 2023. Yes, progress is made, and we have to honor the efforts of the Parliament, the government, on several issues dealing with the European policy, European dimension, with the adaptation of the national system into the common education European area. But there are still concerns. Good news it's been said by the minister, let me, as a critical friend, focus on some concerns. Chapter 26, there are also other chapters in all evidence. I've quite impressive, and I took some papers with me for the debate because probably we will have question time and I have to refer to the law and to research, as you will definitely raise some critical questions vis-à-vis my findings. And the overall issue is, may I quote, Albania is moderately prepared. There are some modest improvements. It's diplomatic language, as you can imagine. Some progress is made, definitely, and I will not repeat what the minister mentioned, but there are still concerns. I'm referring to the paper of the European Commission, November 2023, so a couple of weeks ago, 1 month ago actually, on inclusion and on quality, on vocational education, education and training, on early childhood education, on increasing digital technology, upgrading curricula, on governance, and it is a kind of an echo of all those other, and I made the efforts. Coming to Albania means 1 week of reading all those international documents who are updated last year from the OECD, from the UNESCO, from the World Bank, you name it, who are giving a very sharp vision of what's really going on, what's not the discourse, but what about reality. So, yeah, further efforts are required, so progress, definitely, but progress should be accelerated. One real concern, well, besides other concerns, is on the public spending. 3.2 GDP 2022, 3.1 2023, 2.9 2024, 2.8 2025. There are other plans. Progress in enrollment, but still critical remarks from UNESCO, from and I can refer to the progress made in December 2022. Quite interesting to compare. I'm a comparativist. I'm focusing on policy and law, from constitutional, administrative, European, international. So I'm a comparativist. So also comparing the reports of the European Commission of last couple of years. And it's giving you, it is inspiring. It's a lesson in modesty, but also in made real progress made. I have here some interesting issues on the rights of the child, progress made, but still also on legal framework. On minorities, I gave the keynote in Budapest last week on the European Charter of Minorities. Framework convention was signed by Albania, but not the European Charter, 25 years later. That will, by the way, be a condition, and that's another chapter, that's chapter 26, that's another chapter. But still we have to have a road. And then, of course, on corruption, the notion is not mentioned until now, the term corruption. Well, you know that I'm a believer of Europarameters and of the Balkan barometer, quite interesting. Albania is ranked as the country with the highest level of the perception of corruption in the region. I should not repeat, I guess. And definitely, according to Transparency International, education is one of the most, very a little bit ironic, the most prominent, the most popular domains of corruption, education. barometer report's concerns over education are especially stressing for Albania, also related to the perception that the education system has not adequately prepared the young people for the workplace. But unfortunately, there are too many reports. I have here just a modest example of reports on corruption, bribery, nepotism, favoritism, deception, plagiarism, ethical misconduct, breach of contract in areas of the teaching process, of school completion and graduation, of assessment received, on licensing and on accreditation, employment of teachers, and so on. Yes, there are ethics and conduct commissions in education institutions. There is a normative provisions in the pre-university education, but still there are domains where political interference is detected quite prominently. And the very last report, a couple of weeks ago, I quote, to be very scientific. It is a positive development that Albania has approved is implementing the intersectoral strategy against corruption 2015 to 2023, including the action plan to 2020-23. Nevertheless, there is a limited impact of anti-corruption measures in vulnerable areas of the country, especially in education. Another overall finding, Albania has recently approved the new strategy for education, including the action plan 21-26. Positive steps, but it's about the implementation, the lack of implementation. And I'm giving, well, you know, I had to start this lecture to say, well, let us see this meeting as a momentum. Now, I feel some same feelings already when I was asked, don't be worried, by the Duma in 89 and 20, 1990, after the collapse of the USSR, invited by the Duma and by Minister Prof, Katchenko, Filipov, and Kinelov, working 15 years on education legislation. I did the same in South Africa and some in other countries. I'm one of the co-founders of the Southeast European University, close to the region, finishing the war in Macedonia between the Macedonians and Albanians, and being one of the founders of that university after the Ohrid agreements. So my heart is in the region, definitely, for historical and for research and other reasons. And every time I'm using, just referring to this as a momentum. Yes, let us try to reach a partnership between civil society and actors, stakeholders, and political leadership to drive in the right direction. My lecture, next parts are, try to find the structure, will deal with first the missed or the progress made, definitely, but what are the concerns? Secondly, what about the European dimension of education? What does that mean? But that will be quite short. Then on one of the missing issues, pluralism, concept of pluralism, another role of Catholic, of confessional schools, and then go to the law. In Cauda Venenum, let's talk about the law. One of the missed dimensions referred by the European Commission. Again, the paper and the document document of November 2023 is, but I will be brief, on two missing opportunities for Albania. First, civic society, civil society, and to pluralism, education pluralism, as main cornerstones for improvement of the education system for Albania, what is also the case in other regions. But still, we are talking now about Albania. May I quote a document of the European Commission a couple of weeks ago? The role of civil society should be further strengthened. Structures in place need to be reinforced and become fully operational. There has been no progress in implementing the roadmap on the enabling environment for civil society. This is a serious message. It's important. You cannot put it at the corner of your table. Because at the same time, an empowered civil society is a key component of any democratic system, and Albania's legal and regulatory framework on rights and on freedoms, especially in education, should be in line with this concern, especially in education. There are several proposals on tax incentives for civil society to make it very concrete, but I will not come into detail on this issue. Let me quickly go to the European language. Yeah, it's about values. European Union, European Community, is about the values, the core values. But at the very heart of the European Union. It's freedom, it's human dignity. Now, I should give you now some articulation. Several European constitutional authorities try to reach a balance. What is the most fundamental right in a democracy? Well, human dignity, and it's also at the very first beginning of European charters and European treaties. Freedom, equality, rule of law, and democracy. Those issues are implemented definitely in education, and I was extremely emotional when just 5 years ago there was a consensus on the competences for democratic cultures and culture and the role of schools, of education, reaching democracy and European culture through schools. It was a consensus among 48 countries in Europe on what are the values, what are the attitudes, what are the skills, about critical learning, on what should be at the core of European values in schools. One of my questions, critical questions, vis-à-vis Albanian education system is we should not use the term learning objectives. It's an objective. But we should use the term, embedded in research, learning outcomes. It's a world of difference, not about what should we strive for, not objective, but the outcomes. But what are the outcomes of these competences for culture? And let me also refer to the critical comment of the European Commission, namely we should upgrade curricula, and that means also on several issues related to. And let me refer to a presentation of the conference I had the honor to chair 1 month ago in Lisbon on European citizenship. And the first president of the European Court of Justice, Konrad Leonards, mentioned European citizenship is a constitutional duty, definitely in education. So, yes, some of you are academics. Article 165, 166 of the European Treaty dealing with education and culture is 1667. With the European dimension of education, and with quality control, much more powerful than you imagine. There are norms, it is the acquis communautaire. There are common European standards on how converges and how convergent is Albanian system with European models and European structures. Convergency, coherency, on loyalty, on subsidiarity, on transparency and accountability. So there are European standards embedded in the law, European law, but quite relevant and impactful also for Albania for the future. And then, yeah, the common constitutional European standards of the EU. In education, they are very powerful. Common constitutional standards on education. One of them is the neutrality and the predominant role of states on organizing education, and neutrality of the state group. Second is parental freedom. Parental freedom is embedded in international law in a massive 55 documents in international law on protecting and on promoting parental freedom in education, especially in education. On the right of non-state actors to found schools, to start schools, based on a specific mission. It's a common constitutional standard, common for all European member states. So let me quickly move to the next item, namely freedom of education and freedom in education. And freedom of religion is inherent, is crucial, is a core value in European systems. And that goes now to my short presentation, short focus on pluralism. On the concept of pluralism. Again there, quite huge, and I had the chance to publish some number of books on pluralism. Pluralism was embedded in European countries since 80 years and more, in many domains of culture, of media, of social welfare, of health, of church-state, of the law on religions, and on education. Again there, a common constitutional principle. Of course, the national articulation will be different from one state to another. So it is raising the question, pluralism raising the question, how vibrant is civil society between the state and the market? You have the state, you have the market, and then you have the education sector, definitely the sector for not for profit education, what we are talking about as we are touching on non-state schools and definitely on confessional schools, especially on Catholic schools. Pluralism embedded linked to diversity, to inclusion, although it is, to be honest, it's linked to debated terms like parental rights, religious education, curricular freedom, school choice, funding of NGO schools, or medication. All those issues are not taken for granted in several countries. Although education pluralism is definitely is one of the key human rights and a vital tool for social inclusion. From comparative, Monsignore, from comparative perspective, I will shock you immediately. From comparative perspective, in countries in transition have to deal with freedom of education. And I published a chapter on what is the terminology in education. In the Soviet times, used by the fascists, by the Marxists, and by the Nazis. Exactly the same terminology. It's impacting the mind of the child. Homo Sovieticus, what was justified in the Soviet literature in the name of social justice, of peace, but what is a fundamental denial of human dignity. And in conclusion, parental freedom and pluralism is the counterweight to the imposition of a uniform public education. So the common practices in Europe are school choice, parental involvement, partnership, institutional autonomy of schools in policy and in the law. And there's a quite interesting court case from the US with the main item is the child does not belong to the state. The child does not belong to the state. It is a parental right, parental duty, and again, there is huge evidence on this issue. So there are leading legal principles on the freedom to found the schools, to found it on the ethos, on the mission, on the charter, on the character, specific character, can be professional, can be Catholic, can be Jewish, can be Muslim, or can be also educational, recruitment of the personnel, autonomy of the approach taken to the curriculum. I've here the list of basic terms with no time to come into detail. Without the state, how should the state regulate education? First, the state should focus on core issues, not the details, core. Secondly, there should always be room for alternatives who are on the same level as the state curriculum. 3, after consultation, and 4, there are some domains where the state should not have a control, namely on didactics and on evidence in religious schools on religious instruction. Let me move quickly to my last chapter, namely on funding. I have just one short word. Again, there, what are private schools? Private schools, in UNESCO terminology, private schools are those who are managed by non-state actors. But we researched in several European countries, there is jurisprudence where private actors are, well, called as public because they are sponsored, they are subsidized, they are financed, co-financed by the state. So in England, for instance, there is no private sector, but just for profit. But the confessional schools are a part of the public system. They are called public schools. So we should take care of the. There is massive research evidence on the positive impact of non-state schools. Of course, on accessibility of schools, on availability, on parental choice, on quality, Monsignore, on quality and on innovation and on competitivity, but in a good sense, namely on quality improvement and quality of education. But unfortunately, no time to come into detail. Let me, PISA, well, you had a look at PISA yesterday, I guess, or this night. PISA students in Albania scored lower than the OECD average, we have to be honest, on reading, math and science. We have to tell the truth as critical friends as those who are involved in education. And then PISA mentioned students around in private schools tend to perform better than students who are attending public schools. PISA. Stimulating innovation, private school advantages is a result of competition, but with refining the curriculum. So again, massive. On funding, Ignacy Oidel, the president, the Pope of Oidel, focused on funding. So it is an overall rule, except Greece. Except Greece, but Greece state system is very close to the Orthodox Church. The state schools in Greece are a part of the Orthodox system. Read again legalism. For all other countries, funding is a part of non-governmental schools, is a part of the government. Is a huge part in some countries 50 or 80 or 100%. In my country, I'm Belgian, I'm proud to be Belgian. 100% equality, not just the Netherlands. Not just the Netherlands. There are some other countries where there is a complete equality of non-governmental schools. 75% of schools in Belgium are Catholic. Did you hear well? Although they are, well, and are in the, of course, as in the public interest, they are pluralist to some extent, well, they are inclusive, and having a high, for that reason, although we are doing worse in PISA last 3 years, but still we are ranked among them. So, but that's also on competitivity, on innovation. But what are my findings on funding for Albania? Well, first, the private spending by families, I have some figures here, is increasing dramatically. What pay families, parents for non-for-profit schools? In 5 years ago, it was 0.8% of the GDP, which is enormous. It was growing in 2017, and now it is more than 1% of GDP is paid by parents. What's enormous. So again, it will question the low spending on education by the Albanian. In conclusion, on this issue, European legislation obliges the state to ensure or provide public funding for the private sector. Albanian state law supports only public schools. Yes, this is Article 39 of your law of university education, Article 39. There is also a modest fund from 2009. Modest fund is provided for schools established by religious communities to assist in the payment of some salaries, as we do know. But no fiscal incentives, no assistance for families, even not for those who are very needy. Disadvantaged families are in private, not-for-profit sector, not help supported by helping state, or totally uncommon for all European states. I have figures here. Excluding for textbooks, but that's just small. And the financial support of private education with public funds constitutes the fundamental difference of private education comparing European countries and Albania. Well, it can be a wake-up call. I remember I used the term momentum, or know that we can use this as a momentum. I will be very brief on church state. This is a very interesting domain of research, Albania. Unfortunately, there is so little evidence, so little research on religion in education. It is no other Eastern European country acted in such a radical way towards religion. November '67, religion was completely banned. In November '90, the beginning of religious freedom, that will be very short. And then the Constitution referendum in '98 on Article 10, the Republic education state is neutral. But Article 24, well, and the same article, work together, the terms work together is crucial. And then Article 24, the freedom of expression in education, definitely in education. So the Constitution is now reflecting the system of cooperative model of church-state, what is, as a matter of fact, becoming European. I'm running out of time. I have to make definitely my conclusions. I will not give you my list of my critical reading on the law, although it can be interesting. What should be on the agenda? Just a few comments, but very. The law is just reflecting the hierarchy top-down. State-driven. Lack of autonomy, what can be questioned. Lack of independency of inspector vis-à-vis the minister. Mainly procedures norms, not clear what should be in the law, regulations, in bylaws, orders and instructions. Unclear mutual division of powers. It will be it took much time to come into detail, but I have the law with me. So we can debate on this issue. My very final word. what is the most important judgment of the 20th century? It was a conference in South Africa with all constitutional law experts and chief justices worldwide. It was Brown versus Board of Education. And it's stopping separation between blacks and whites in the US. And the main term there, the main sentence is, I quote, education is probably the most important responsibility of the state. It's the most important competence, responsibility of the state. It needs a village to educate a child, but it needs a nation to make sure that education is a priority, is the first priority. It needs a nation. It should be a national wake-up call. I thank you so much. I'm sorry, I prepared some other details, but we need much more time. That will be for the next time. But my last word is thanks so much for the translators. They are doing so wonderful job. Thank you so much.